When Tiffany suggested I become an elder, I thought I'm too young to become an elder. And then as I look around the room, I realise that maybe Tiffany got it right and I got it wrong. So you'll forgive me if I have to refer to notes, because obviously as I'm old, my short-term memory leaves quite a bit to be desired. So bear with me. I'll shut up now and get on with the talk, because 2 minutes is not a very long time. First of all, it's a real pleasure to talk to you all today and to see so many new faces and some ones I've known for a long, long time. Dear old Chris over there from Global Action Plan, who's been a close friend and someone I've worked with extensively. I don't know for how long, Chris. It seems forever, doesn't it? And other ones as well, and lots of new faces too. So it's an absolute pleasure to meet with like-minded people from all backgrounds, all ages, all everything. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's a joy to be here. I'm an ambassador, and as Tiffany's coach as well, between you and me, I learn more from Tiffany than I think she learns from me. But at the end of it, it seems that we both are better at what we do. We both have particular skills, and what this whole process is about of coaching and engagement, education, all of these things are connected. It's about how we relate and engage with others, so we share the best of ourselves. And the things that actually differentiate us are things that we should celebrate and not use as weapons to beat ourselves up with. Witness what happened this week and the tragedy outside Parliament. And obviously our love and sympathies go out to everybody who was impacted to that. Now, as I said, you may have noticed I'm of particularly advanced years, but the one thing you do get with age, apart from arthritis, short-sightedness and a need to go to the loo 12 times a night, and various other things which you won't talk about, is that you have a huge library of experiences, like a whole photographic library of things that you can look back on. And these are both good and bad things. Now, I don't know how many of you have met Dennis, one of the other founders of the Global Roundtable. But in one of his speeches, which I looked at last night, and if you get a chance, do look at these, because he's an absolutely amazing and engaging speaker, like all of my colleagues today who have spoken. He does a test of people saying, what do you fear most? And what comes back is not the normal things like dying and all the rest of it. We fear that we might be wrong. That's our greatest fear. And that fear is driven by the subconscious preconceptions that we have that we don't even think about. We assume, without even really thinking about it, that perhaps someone who has a backpack is going to blow us up. I don't know. We assume that you see some Somali boys walking down the road with their hoods up, that you're going to be in trouble. And yet the reality is, and I've seen this before, and I occasionally fall over, the number of times these young kids who I would think I better walk on the other side of the road come and pick me up and help me and pick my wallet up and give it back to me. It's amazing. The judgments we make based on these misconceptions, and that when you really think about them, they're the things that should be really uniting us. And if we can get away from these things controlling us, then perhaps we can be better in ourselves. And by being better in ourselves, having more respect for ourselves, we can have more respect for others. In a way, it's become pretty much unavoidable that you do have these preconceptions. We're bombarded from every direction with different messages from multimedia, where the truth becomes merged with fiction, and in itself starts to be subsumed and undermined with fiction. So we can no longer believe anything we hear. And if that carries on, we actually can't then, do we have confidence in our core beliefs anymore when they're being challenged and undermined in so much? Witness Daily Mail and its attacks on charities. Witness the lies in government. Witness, and I'm not being political, the withdrawal of money for social services. Witness the school premium being now used to pay the national insurance and pension contributions of teachers instead of being applied to young children. You know, I mean, the cries from the NHS and the schools, they can't all be wrong. Why isn't someone listening? And I don't mean conservative or whatever, I just mean someone who's empowered to do it. Why don't they listen? No wonder we start to feel a little bit disenchanted and disenfranchised with the world around us. So who do we believe? Politicians? No. Newspapers? No. Colleagues? We might have some doubts because a colleague might have voted for Brexit when he didn't want to vote for Brexit. And I've seen friendships and family relationships completely busted by that, by what you think was a simple decision. Oh, well, I respect your point of view. You do, but it goes so deep that it starts to divide us again. Teachers, what we read about teachers these days, I don't know. Quite recently, unfortunately, I realised just how much all of this, I mean, I'm 67 this year, how much all of this has affected me. And I've been working 50 years this September, my 50th year of actually being in full-time work. And how all of this negativity was influencing me in everything that I do, and not in a good way. And I found that whilst, by virtue of a long experience, I was able to act positively and passionately to the extent I don't think anybody noticed, I'd stopped believing in anything anymore. I felt I wasn't making a difference to anything, and that basically everything I was doing was becoming a waste of time and transient, and I may as well just follow the money like I used to earlier in my career. It was not about anything specific, but an accumulation of those subconscious demons that Dennis refers to in his speeches. I refer them to as demons. Dennis doesn't, it's my wording. So I went away for a few days where there were no internet, no colleagues, no families, no other distractions. And I realized I'd lost something very, very precious. Something which had used to define me, which didn't define me anymore. And everything I did, and I had absolutely no idea how to get it back. Can you think what that was? Hope. I'd lost all hope in the way businesses behaved, the lack of compassion in government, the future of young people going through a flawed education system, the lack of respect between people, even the number of Uber cars being registered in London where there's a commitment to reduce pollution and the air quality and to increase the air quality in London. And in one day in January, we exceeded the annual pollution allowance for London in one day. Witness Boris Johnson's legacy of let's cycle lane London, let's get 10,000 Uber cabs a month registered, let's allow commercial vehicles 24-hour access to our city. You just can't trust any of them anymore. And that was also in complete contradiction to the Mayor's commitment to keep air cleaner. All the work that Chris is doing with Global Action Plan, with National Health, the Royal Brompton and places like that, in a way, whilst it's laudable, it becomes irrelevant in the context of that huge thing. It's like saying, well, Cornwall's carbon neutral, well, what's India doing? It's a bit like that. So I was losing trust in all the things I held dear. 1 minute warning, blimey. Traditional boring stuff like respect for each other. And I was almost ready to pack it up and move away. Then two things happened. First, I became involved in a project in a primary school in an area of London where 90% are recent immigrants, 25% don't speak English, 80% are single parent families, and many of those the primary carer at 9 to 10 years old. A number of those kids were pending exclusion. We put a program together which was using very simple tools like it's okay to get upset, it's okay if you don't like something, and so on, and to teach them to respect themselves, and to respect themselves, then they would start to be respected by others. That was our mantra. I don't have time to go into it, but the reality was it worked, and suddenly I felt, wow, we've got another generation. This is worth doing, this is making a difference. I can scale this, because I've been in business and I can scale stuff. The second thing about that time was a whirlwind blew into my life in a tiny frame, wearing a pair of huge headphones, nearly bigger than a head, a force of nature, and Tiffany, that was you. You shared with me your ideas and your vision and all you'd achieved and the number of people you had engaged with all over the world, from children, young adults and elders. I was so impressed, I sort of became passionate about what you were doing. So this combination of working with children and seeing that there could be a future and an impact for what I was doing, and meeting with Tiffany drew me back to a better place where I could start to recover my hope again. Now, all of which I've spoken to you about today concerns education, excuse me, because if we equip our children with these tools, these simple basic tools of resilience and care, and start to rebuild their self-esteem and confidence, then they can start to not repeat the errors of the past and their backgrounds, but go on and make a positive contribution and be happy people in the future. And I encourage you all to do this. Look at the Legacy Learning Platform. What can you add to that? How can we spread it? How can we use that to get these messages out, to deal with disenfranchised children and others that need what we are going to do if we are going to make this change? I think I've taken up nearly all of my 10-minute slot, so I'd like to say two things in closing. And I can't remember what they are, but I've got them written down. First, and a number of speakers have said this, which has really annoyed me, on our own we can make a difference, but together I genuinely believe we can make the difference. So go out there, make it happen, give me hope, and keep me hopeful. Thank you.